We are going to get started. My name is Christy Emmerich. I am the CCBA president this year, and I would like to thank you all for joining us at our candidates forum for the Department 11 position that has opened up in Superior Court. I'm going to make just a couple of announcements to buy a few minutes of time, as I see we have quite a few people still joining, and I want to make sure that they can hear the candidates speak. So I'll give a couple brief announcements. First, we received notice on Friday that the Superior Court has posted an opening for a Superior Court Commissioner. They've indicated that applications are due by 5 o'clock on Friday at 5 p.m. on October 16th. The second announcement is for our Bar Association. We are actually going to be having a fall social event. That's going to be scheduled for Tuesday, October 27th. And that's going to be located out at BZ Farms. We have rented out a corn maze just for our CCBA members and their families and significant others. So if you're interested, we were going to have more information that'll be coming out, but we're also looking for folks to join us and participate on our social committee this year. Christina Phelan is our chair of our social committee, and I know she's looking for more help. So if you are interested, please reach out to Christina. And then finally, our last announcement is our CCBA bar poll for this Department 11 position is going to be distributed to all our members this evening. If you haven't renewed your dues yet, you still have time. So please log on to the website and get your dues paid so we can make sure you get a bar poll today. So this is a different format, as I'm sure you guys are all aware. With the Zoom format, the way we are going to be conducting the forum today, and I'm just going to go through briefly so everyone understands. We have 7 candidates this year for our Department 11 position. 6 candidates are going to be speaking today at our forum. Those 6 candidates met with us on Friday. We drew names to see who would go in which order. And so it's a random order, and we're going to proceed down that order. First, we'll be having Sean Downs speak, then Emily Sheldrick, Nancy Ristinas, Casey Vu, Searing Cornell, and then James Smith. Each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to present a statement, and then we're going to follow that by 3 minutes of questions for that candidate. The way we are going to ask questions is if you have something you would like addressed, I would ask that you submit that question in your chat bar. So if you could click on that and type in your question, I will relay those questions to the appropriate candidate at that time. With that being said, I think we have, I'm just going to check to see if we have anyone still logging in. It doesn't look like it. So we are going to get going with our candidates forum. The first candidate to give his statement is going to be Sean Downs. If everyone else could just make sure that they are muted during this time. And then I will turn this over to Sean.
All right, thank you, Christy. Good afternoon. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Okay, sounds good. So I wanted to give just a quick background, since I know maybe half of you at most, to give you a little better sense of myself and why I'm applying for this position. So I'm a lifelong Pacific Northwest native. I was born and raised in the Portland suburb area, lived there pretty much my entire life until moving up to Spokane. Went to law school at Gonzaga, and then worked at a small firm as a Rule 9 and as an attorney for a little bit, and then moved on to the Spokane County Public Defender's Office. There I represented clients doing misdemeanor work, felony representation, ralge appeal representation. So I definitely had a lot of cases, represented a lot of clients during that time. Did a bit of trial practice, obviously, doing that. Then in 2013, moved down here, started working in Clark County, started a law firm with a partner, and we had a location in Vancouver, location in Spokane. And primarily I've been working representing indigent defendants charged with felonies, indigent defendants on RALJ appeals, indigent defendants on RAP appeals. I've done a little bit of civil litigation as well. So I've practiced in quite a bit of the state, about 13 counties, I think, or at least 12 counties throughout the state. And also in the last year plus, I've had the opportunity to work as a commissioner pro tem in Clark County Superior Court. So mostly I'm a trial attorney. I've had dozens of Superior Court trials, have had quite a bit of appellate experience, over 100 appeals. Last week I filed a couple of briefs in the Supreme Court, have another one due today, so I'll be working on that after this forum. Outside of courts, I've done quite a bit in terms of working to better help our criminal defense community, criminal defendants generally. I've been active in the Superior Court bench bar meetings, go to the criminal policy and procedure meetings, law and justice meetings. We run a bi-weekly criminal defense CLE. We have, I've been involved in, I think, over a dozen work groups in the last 4 years. So it's been a lot, but it's required since we don't have a public defender's office here. There needs to be someone leading, someone in that role. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm applying for this position. I think that criminal defense attorneys have a different perspective, a little bit of a different ethos. I believe that society is measured by how we treat our least advantaged or most vulnerable members of our community. Oftentimes that means the criminal defendants that we come across. They're chemically dependent, they're mentally ill.
We are at the 2 minutes if you.
Sorry. So I can talk more about that in the questions, but thank you for your time.
Thanks. Sean, I'm going to open up for the first question. That we have is, what are your thoughts on our current criminal pretrial bail system? Any changes or improvements that you would suggest?
Yeah, there was, I think it was about 4 years ago, we had a bail reform work group and working with pretrial services to better inform the court as to how to grade people on certain criteria in terms of whether someone should be released or have conditions of release or potentially have bail imposed. I think since COVID-19, there's been some positives in terms of pretrial release for criminal defendants. We've gone from 650 inmates at the jail to about 450, sometimes 400 inmates at the jail. And the vast majority of them are pretrial detainees. So a large majority of that has to do with release. It's kind of difficult to monitor when you don't have the resources, and also difficult to monitor during times of COVID because you can't have the personal interactions with individuals, but they are able to check in remotely, which is good. They're able to appear in court remotely, which is easier for a lot of people in order to keep their jobs. But more to the point, I think that the court just has to follow the rule. It's pretty straightforward, 3.2, straightforward presumption of release. Article 1, Section 20, every offense is bailable. So it's really just a matter of following those basic rules, and it's something that obviously as a judge I would promise to do.
Thanks, Sean. And I think we have one more time for at least one more question. The question is, have you participated in any protests, demonstrations, or marches in the last few years? And would you be willing to forego those activities as a judge?
I haven't participated in that. I mean, it's fine for me to not participate as a judge. I find my role to be, I have better service to the community by working within the system. So, I mean, obviously I can go out to the street and hold up a sign, but that ultimately doesn't change anything. You have to work within the system. So attending these work groups, attending the criminal policy and procedure meeting with the prosecutor's office, meeting with their our committee, a lot of it has to do with engaging with the prosecutor's office, engaging with some of the reforms that they're willing to do, engaging with the courts to make sure that they understand the rules that they need to follow, and that there's a better way in terms of avoiding mass incarceration, in terms of treating individuals like people instead of just treating them on their worst day, or one of their worst days of their life. So it's a matter of respect, of respecting the system and working within it, I think achieves the best results. And we've made some progress in the last few years. So I'm proud of what we've been able to do as a group. And you're muted, Christy.
Thanks, Sean. The next candidate that is going to be speaking is Emily Sheldrick. Emily, your 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks, Christy. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm Emily Sheldrick. First, I wanted to thank you everyone for taking the time today to hear from the judicial candidates. So many aspects of our life have changed over this last year, but my commitment to public service and my desire to serve as a Superior Court judge remains steadfast. I believe that I have the experience, the background, and the character to be an excellent and effective judge. I've been practicing law for 24 years with an emphasis on civil litigation and employment law. I've also extended my neutral decision-making experience by doing work as a pro tem in Superior Court and through my volunteer work with the Washington State Bar Association. I send to all the members of the bar my resumes, so I invite you to look at that to know more about my experience and background. As Chief Civil Deputy in the Prosecuting Attorney's Office, I manage the civil division, and I also am the Chief Legal Advisor to our county's elected and appointed officials. Since COVID-19, this work has been of critical importance as I advise our county departments, including public health, on the numerous new laws and proclamations that impact our residents and our employees. I am fortunate to have been able to contribute to my community during these unprecedented times. And I am interested in further extending my commitment to public service. I value working with individuals from diverse backgrounds, both professionally and respectfully. I believe that my background and legal experience would be of benefit to the bench as well as to litigants. I have a passion for continuous learning, which would ensure that I'd be prepared and current for matters at hand. If appointed, I hope litigants would feel that they had been heard no matter the outcome. I'm committed to examining my personal biases. I'm committed to understanding the judiciary's impact on our society, and including the most oppressed and marginalized in our community. I believe the most effective judges demonstrate integrity, professionalism, preparedness, impartiality, and hard work, and I'm ready to step up to this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. I am going to open it up for questions. The first question looks like that we have are, what reforms do you support or would you suggest to increase access to justice or the need for access to justice in our community?
That's a great question. I think the courts have already started this process with the unlawful detainer docket, but I think more needs to happen, certainly in the family law arena, as well as with more collaboration with volunteer lawyers program. I think it's been really interesting for me to see some of the dockets that I've covered have pro se. In fact, the only individuals that have been in court have been pro se. And it really gives you insight into the difficulty that individuals have in navigating our legal system. I mean, certainly as lawyers, we have so much training and resources, but individuals are still having a challenge with that. And of course, the judiciary has the challenge in that they cannot, practice the law by advising individuals in the courtroom. So really the bench should work more with our local resources, which they've already been doing, but I think there can be more done, certainly with family court. and more collaboration with the county departments that can have some crossover services to assist in making sure there are budget resources to help in certainly family law and other resources.
Thank you, Emily. The next question we have is asking how many jury trials have you done and what type, and whether or not you have any experience with the criminal law.
Well, I got this question last year and I still have only had one jury trial. I've done bench trials, of course, and numerous arbitrations, and I'm very familiar with the courtroom, have done lots of courtroom work. What was the second part of that question, Christy? Oh, criminal exposure, is that it? Okay. So that has really actually happened since I joined the prosecutor's office. It really broadened my understanding of the criminal law because I am part of the management team. So I've had some more access to understanding the issues and charging issues. And then most recently, I've been part of ARC, which Sean mentioned, which is the Action Reform Committee. And this is a group in the prosecutor's office that's been formed to really take a hard look at what prosecutors can do to address issues of systemic racism. So during those discussions, I'm learning quite a bit about the different charging issues, diversion, and of course our therapeutic courts. And then I also, in my role in the civil division, we do have crossover with criminal law. So I advise the sheriff's office, I advise Superior Court, I advise juvenile court, juvenile detention. So there's quite a bit of exposure to criminal issues, including some of our civil cases that have crossover, say with due process cases that involve excessive use of force.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank
That's
you.
our 3 minutes. We are going to move to our next candidate, Nancy Rastinas. Nancy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everybody for attending today. I really appreciate your time and attention. This is an important position, and I'm so pleased to be on this call with all 6. Sorry, we're missing one of our candidates, but all 6 of the candidates, really very highly qualified folks. And this county is going to be well served by the appointed judge. So again, thank you for attending. Thanks to the CCBA for organizing the event and for organizing the bar poll. As a private practice attorney with nearly 30 years of broad-based courtroom experience, I believe I'm well suited and ready to step into public service as a Superior Court judge. I want to touch lightly on 3 themes in this short 2 minutes of time that I have. First, experience. Second, access to justice. And third, my promise to my colleagues. With regard to my experience, as I indicated, I've been in private practice for nearly 30 years. I have a diverse legal experience in many areas of litigation. My practice for the last 20 years is focused in family law. But prior to that, I grew up in a general practice law firm. And as part of that, I was handed files from day one, began working as an indigent defense attorney in juvenile court almost immediately, and was handed files and managed as lead counsel on many items in civil litigation, collections, very practical, broad-based experience, the kinds of things that we want as young attorneys in order to give us the broadest base of how the law works and impacts folks in our community. Certainly I have a significant motion practice and a solid bench trial experience. I've done more than 40 bench trials. I actually did some counting. I've probably underestimated, but I tried to do some metrics to figure out over 30 years how many I've done. I've experienced as a neutral. Not only am I a pro tem Superior Court Commissioner, handling dockets almost weekly here for the last number of months, and also last year. I was a former District Court Judge pro tem for about 6 years, handling the wide array of matters that come before that court. With regard to access to justice, the Clark County court system belongs to all citizens of this county, regardless of station, race, or situation. It is the most solemn duty of a judge to treat all who come before her with respect and with fairness. I have done and am continuing to do the work necessary to catch my own unconscious biases before they impact deliberations and rulings. The intent there is to ensure trauma-informed, equity-based reasoning. I have seen firsthand as a volunteer lawyer my whole career, the positive impact the court can have when all citizens feel the doors of justice are open to them. and my promise to my colleagues. If appointed to this position, I promise to listen well and rule wisely, to work hard and be prepared for every case, to read and understand the law, to use good judgment and sound discretion, and make decisions based upon the law and evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
You bet.
We are going to open it up for questions. And all right, thank you. Sorry, Nancy, I'm scrolling through this chat, making sure that I am reading the appropriate questions. The first question is, do you think the proposed current method for jury selection in the county will assure both the safety of litigants and lawyers who are more medically vulnerable and provide a fair cross-section of the community?
So in talking about the jury selection processes for during COVID, I do think that they are addressing the safety concerns for folks by handling the voir dire and the jury selection at the fairgrounds. So I do think that that is working. There are always, I think, going to be concerns with regard to fairness and cross-representation of the county. We are a predominantly white community. We have, I believe, about 2% of our community of African-American descent and about another 12 or 13% of Hispanic descent. We have community members who are immigrants of Chuukese descent and other Asian descents. And our juries aren't going to be able to necessarily reflect that type of diversity in our county. So we can do more in that regard. Certainly the videos that are being shown to the prospective jurors on implicit bias help in that regard. And I believe we can even do more to ensure fairness in jury selection, certainly.
Thank you. Our next question is your thoughts on our current criminal pretrial bail system, any changes or improvements you would suggest?
Yeah, you know, I think that bail reform is on the horizon, and we need to look more seriously at creating bail reforms. I think we've seen, Mr. Downs mentioned earlier, that with COVID, we've kind of it's exposed perhaps some misconceptions that we've had about the bail system with regard to the impetus that it forms to secure returns and court appearances by folks throughout the pretrial process. So I think some work can be done there. I would look forward to working with the prosecutor's office along with the defense bar and frankly engaging the community for community support kinds of input in order to ensure that bail is reflecting the values of this community and that the purpose of bail is very, very coherently tied to the charges that are pending. That way we aren't falling ourselves into a situation where we've got a lot of pretrial incarceration that may then end up impacting pleas or plea deals, or whether folks are willing to or able to continue working, continue engaging with their families, and defend themselves to the fullest extent that the law should be providing them.
Thank you, Nancy. And that is our 3 minutes for questions.
Thank you so much.
Our next candidate who will be speaking is Casey Vu.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'm very pleased and honored for the opportunity this afternoon to chat with all of you for a few minutes at least and ask for your support in the upcoming bar poll. As indicated, my name is Casey Vu, and I have applied for the vacancy on the Clark County Superior Court bench because I believe I have the unique qualifications that have prepared me for this role. I have the background, breadth and depth of experience, aptitude, and demeanor to be a judge the citizens of Clark County will be proud of. I've been a member of the Clark County legal community for over 20 years and currently serve as a senior deputy prosecuting attorney for Clark County. I've handled over 1,000 cases and tried dozens of felony jury trials in Superior Court, from drugs and property crimes all the way to murders, multiple murders. and I've litigated countless other matters in court. So I'm very, very well familiar with how court works, as well as the rules and the rules of evidence. My other experience includes serving over 23 years in the US Army, as well as the Washington Army National Guard in the state. My service included 2-year-long combat deployments to Iraq, where I truly came to appreciate our justice system in this country. I'm also a first-generation immigrant, more specifically, a refugee to this country, and as you can see, a person of color. I've experienced both the good and the bad with regard to the opportunities and challenges that our country presents to this segment of the population. I believe all of my experiences, both legal and non-legal, will make me a better judge than without them. The hallmark of a good judge is the ability to be fair. A fair judge must be patient, a good listener, treats everyone equally and with respect, and scrupulously apply the rule of law. As a judge, I will strive every single day to practice these ideals. With that, I humbly ask for your support in the upcoming bar poll. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. And I'm going to open it up for 3 minutes of questions. The first question that I have is, as a prosecuting attorney, what prosecutor policies did you personally advocate for in order to change or address inequalities or inequities in the system?
So I am currently a member of the Action Reform Committee in the prosecutor's office, which recently formed this past summer. And we are working on a number of really important issues. I'm part of the Correction External Policy Committee, which we're right now working on communicating with our local law enforcement agencies, Sheriff's Office, Vancouver Police Department, Washington State Patrol, to implement and have them adopt the body cameras. As we all know, transparency in police operations will increase the opportunity for the public and the community to be that much more confident, if you will, in how the police interact with everyone out in the community. So we've been working on that for a number of weeks now. Moving forward, we hope that that's going to become a reality in the near future. Obviously, funding is the big issue right now, and the various law enforcement agencies are working on their various aspects of what they need to do in order to meet the funding needs, as well as the training and then all of the logistics that come with that. So that's one thing that I've been intimately involved with that I can recall off the top of my head. In the course of my years of here at the prosecutor's office, I've worked on a number of different things to make sure that we treat everyone in court equally and not give preferential treatment to one person or one group over the next. Moving forward, if I'm able to affect any changes, I would like to hopefully address or at least provide input into bail reform in this county. I understand that the historical practices in our county, at least, has been to, obviously, when a person makes first appearance in a criminal case, bail is usually addressed, and the judge who is on the bench typically considers both the recommendations from the prosecutor as well as whatever input from the defendant and or defense attorney if they happen to be there. And of course, apply the criteria under Criminal Rule 3.2. The problem that we have is currently I believe that we don't have sufficient funds for pretrial supervised release. And if we can somehow crack that nut so that when people are put on supervised release with conditions to ensure their return to court, and that they are monitored, then there's less need for them to be placed on a bail amount or even incarceration. So that's something that I have really thought about and hope that we can implement in this county.
Thank you, Casey. That is our 3 minutes for questions. Our next candidate to speak is going to be Searing Cornell.
Good afternoon. My name is Searing Cornell. Thank you for joining us. Much has changed since I spoke with you at a similar forum a year and a half ago, or what feels like 6 years ago in quarantine time. For those of you I'm meeting for the first time, please let me share some of my background. My parents are immigrants from Tibet by way of refugee camps in India and Nepal. They worked hard at a wood mill in Washougal for several years. In true Clark County fashion, I got my first job at 14 making corn dogs at the fair. From Evergreen High School in Vancouver, I headed off to Dartmouth College and then UC Hastings College of the Law. I began my practice in big law at an international law firm based out of Silicon Valley before joining the AG's office in 2013. My broad experience gives me a unique perspective, having represented small startups, large corporations, state agencies, a statewide elected official, nonprofits, and individuals seeking asylum. Since our last forum, I've had the pleasure to meet and work with many of you. I count myself lucky to be practicing in a county with such a talented and giving legal community. I've enjoyed pro bono opportunities available through the Clark County Volunteer Lawyers Program and volunteering as a high school mock trial judge. I also serve as a pro tem on the family law and juvenile criminal dockets, and I participate in family treatment court, one of our county's therapeutic specialty courts. It has been helpful to gain additional insight into how our courts address addiction in our community. As a trial attorney, I practice and appear before our current bench regularly, and I have successfully defended rulings at the Court of Appeals and the state Supreme Court. I understand the weight of the matters before the court and that these rulings impact individuals in the broader community. I take that responsibility seriously and am committed to caring about the issues, to being fully prepared, to impartially delivering well-reasoned decisions based on the law as applied to the facts presented, and to treating all those who enter my courtroom with dignity and courtesy. I am honored to have been granted the highest possible rating of exceptionally well qualified by the Latino Bar Association, Q Law, and the Joint Asian Judicial Evaluations Committees, and to have bipartisan support from both Attorney General Bob Ferguson and Secretary of State Kim Wyman. I hope I can count on your support as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Searing. Opening it up for 3 minutes of questions. The first one is, how would you help improve access to justice, specifically in family law, which has been set out as where the most change is needed?
So based on my experience pro temming and seeing colleagues in this arena working hard, there's no doubt that our family law practitioners are extraordinary here in Clark County. Not only do we have a talented bunch, but we have a really giving bunch. And it's not uncommon to see volunteers on the pro se dockets, and I think that's really helpful. As my colleagues have indicated, the amount of paperwork and navigation that needs to be done by just your average individual can feel overwhelming. And so many individuals are coming through our systems, not just family law, but in other arenas pro se. And so I think really supporting our volunteer lawyers program here locally and gathering commitments from individuals practicing here in Clark County to take that time to do pro bono work. Also, the Modest Means program, which is through the State Bar Association, is something that I think helps individuals who are in that straddling that range where they don't qualify for pro bono help, but do need assistance navigating through these challenging legal waters. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question we have is, given the minimal resources in the Clark County Indigent Defense Office, what role should a Superior Court judge play to ensure that indigent people accused of crimes are getting constitutionally adequate representation?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Here in Clark County, I think we're fortunate. We have, as I've mentioned, a really talented bar as well as an outstanding bench. There have been, being an AAG, I work with the Office of Public Defense frequently. They represent the parents that go through the dependency court system. And I am amazed at how my colleagues on the other side manage the caseload and the complexity of the issues that come before them. And they do it in a way, and I believe our bench currently sees all of that. They see that perspective. Having people on the bench who have seen all of these elements also helps, knowing that when a continuance is requested, to think that through and to not only think about the time needed to prepare for defending litigants in these situations, but also what's really at stake here in the larger picture. Not losing sight of that, I think, is a key. And we are pretty fortunate here in Clark County to not run into those issues terribly. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Christy, I didn't catch that.
I said thank you, and it looks like we have a follow-up to that question. Oh, but no, our 3 minutes is up. I'm sorry. So thank you, Siri. And our next candidate to be speaking is James Smith.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is James Smith, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in the Bar Candidate Forum today. I think it's a true testament to the strength of our community and bar that we have so many fine candidates from such different backgrounds and practice areas here today. I believe that what distinguishes me is my combination of trial experience, proven leadership ability, and demonstrated character and professionalism that make me well suited to serve as a judge in these unprecedented times. I think it's only fair to acknowledge that I've had many advantages in life. I think one of these, in truth, was to grow up in Appalachia and Mississippi, both places that have an incredibly rich culture, yet that are also marred by deep economic and racial disparities, and in many times injustices. That gave me a different perspective on life and the need for equal justice for all. I moved to Washington State and made a home and an exceptional legal career here. I've lived in Vancouver for more than 15 years and was even able to persuade my in-laws to move here, but that was actually a pretty easy sell. As an attorney, my entire career has been devoted to public service and solving complex problems in and out of the courtroom. I chose public service because it runs in the family. My father served in the Army and then was a social worker for 30 years, and my mother is a retired ER and ICU nurse. In the courtroom, I've tried over 100 jury trials, including 5 murder trials. I know my way around a courtroom and a trial. I've argued many cases before the appellate courts with great success, and I've helped lead large and highly complex public organizations. I've also worked for years outside the courtroom with all sorts of people to improve the legal system for everyone. As a trial lawyer and as a leader, I've made many hard decisions under pressure and have a proven record of thoughtfulness and sound judgment. Here in the community, I volunteer for several bar committees and work groups, including the art committee within the prosecutor's office, and I serve on committees for the Washington State Bar Association. In 2019, I was appointed by the Washington Supreme Court as a hearing officer, a neutral decision maker for attorney discipline cases. At every point in my career, I've tried to exemplify the highest standards of civility, integrity, and professionalism. I've shown a willingness to keep an open mind and to listen and learn from other people. I would bring the same approach to the bench and treat everyone appearing before me with dignity and respect. I would pledge to work hard to decide each case fairly and fully, based only on the facts and the law and not upon bias, prejudice, or favor, because the promise of equal justice and ensuring the rule of law is essential to our nation and to its future. I appreciate your support and welcome any questions that you may have. Thank you all.
Thank you, James. Going to our first question. Do you agree that diversity on the bench, including gender and ethnic diversity, is an essential component of a fair and impartial judiciary? Why or why not? And then why do you believe you can contribute to the bench in Clark County as related to this issue?
Sure. I do believe that diversity in experience, background, and all sorts of things is very important to the bench, and I would support measures to improve that in the future. In my career, I've worked and learned with people from all walks of life. When I've had the opportunity, I've chosen to mentor and try to pass along the talents and the knowledge that I think I have to other people that are different from me. And I've done that as well as when I've been in a position to make hiring decisions on personnel committees or of that nature. So I think it is essential. And it was after great reflection and great thought that I chose to step forward this position, because I believe that I do have the talents that would allow me to serve and allow me to benefit the Bingsh and the community.
Thank you. The next question we have is, do you think the court should be involved in pretrial settlement discussions in criminal cases like they are in civil?
That's a very interesting question. It's banned by statute, obviously. I know that obviously in Oregon, there is a role for the judge in settlement conferences. I would want to know a lot more about that before I advocated for any type of change. I think there's potential benefits. I think there's also significant potential, possibly pitfalls there. If a person wants to have a trial, particularly a criminal defendant, that is their constitutional right. And I think we would not want to inadvertently create a system that would discourage that in any fashion. That being said, I would be open to learn more about it and to consider what the information shows.
Thank you. Looks like our next question is a repeat of your thoughts on the current criminal pretrial bail system. Any changes or suggestions that you would suggest?
Sure. I think it's undeniable that pretrial release and bail has room for improvement. I think that it's important that we be mindful of the current situation regarding the pandemic, the need to maintain social distancing and safety within the jail as much as possible. But that also has to be balanced with community safety. And sometimes there's specific risks to victims or communities that make bail appropriate. Not always so. And my approach to that has changed significantly during the pandemic in my own practice and my own recommendations. I think locally we have made progress. I think there's certainly more progress that can be made. I think it's important not simply to, and I don't think that anyone is proposing this necessarily, but not simply to eliminate bail, but also to increase services that can allow criminal defendants to come back, to make it to court, to interface with the court and with their attorneys. And that requires additional support and services. And I would support that.
Perfect. Thank you, James. And that is time. I would like to thank everybody participating today. All 6 of our candidates today, Sean, Emily, Nancy, Casey, Searing, and James. Thank you for taking the time to meet with our community and let them get to know a little bit about you. I wasn't able to get to everybody's questions, so I do appreciate the fact that everyone was participating in the chat. Tried to combine questions and get out as many of your questions as possible as we could to the candidates, while still being respectful of our time constraints and trying to get this all done over everyone's lunch hour. So again, I thank you for your time. Our bar poll will be going out this evening. Please take an opportunity in a few minutes to participate in that. And again, thank you for joining us over our Zoom CCBA Candidates Forum. Thank you.
Thank you.